Hello，你好，欢迎回来，Welcome back. Wisdom Wednesday with Johnny Tiger on August 10, 2022. And yes, Kitten arrived here safely, recuperating from the flight, so she's not going to uh, be doing anything with today's episode. She is here in the background, just laughing at me. Uh, say anything wrong, whatever, you know. She's she's right here in the background and
Not laughing.
not having. Yeah. Uh, so anyway, um, when I was growing up, I used to be told that I was very annoying to watch movies with because I guess my mom is the same way. Me and my mom, we can't seem to sit down and watch an entire movie without fidgeting. So my mom is actually a little bit worse than me because my mom is the kind of person that will sit down, watch a movie for 5 minutes, storm out of the room, go do something else for 5 minutes, and then come back and ask you, what happened? And then she'll sit here and watch another 10 minutes, and then she'll go off and do something for 5 minutes, and she'll come back, what happened? And that's how she watches almost every movie. She can't sit still. Me, I am almost just as bad. Although I don't do the leaving the room and coming back because that is I find that so obnoxious when she did it to me. So I'll try to stay put. But whenever I'm watching a movie, I have a hard time just sitting still and watching it. I need to have something to do with my hand. Uh, so I love uh, watching a movie or listening to an audiobook while I'm cooking, or while I'm working out, or while I'm jogging on the treadmill, or while I'm drawing a picture, and stuff like that. Like I need something to do with my hand. At the very least, if I really have nothing to do with my hand during a movie, uh, I'll be fidgeting with action figures, rearranging displays, and stuff like that. Uh, Kitten can actually attest to that. If I sit still during a movie, within 5 minutes, I usually fall asleep. And then I wake up, it's like, what happened? um, it would appear that throughout history, throughout tradition, my own people, the Chinese people, Taiwanese people, have always been very, very fidgety, just like me. Why do I say that? Well, a while ago, we talked about games that Chinese people play. Today, we're going to talk about snacks Chinese people like to eat. Uh, when they're watching a football game, soccer game, they don't really like football. They like soccer. Uh, they like baseball. And when I was watching a baseball game, or when they're listening to a comedy, when I was listening to a stand-up comedy, listening to music, watching the performance, watching the movie, Chinese people have very specific type of snack that is widely accepted and widely enjoyed. Now, what food it is, it changes throughout the ages. But all these food have something in common that by the end of this video, you will probably realize what I'm talking about. So let's start from right now, at the most modern time, this past 2 or 3 years. What's popular as a Chinese snack? What do Chinese people do when they get together and drink beer and watch soccer game and watch movie? Spicy crayfish or crawfish, if you're from other part of the U.S., crayfish, crawfish, uh, mudbug is all the same thing. It's that lobster that's not a lobster. Is that thing that look like a baby lobster, but it's totally different animal. Um, Chinese people love right now love spicy crayfish. So a lot of time when they sit down and two or three good buddies, four friends sit down watching a game, you'll get a big plate of spicy fried crayfish, and they're all still in their shell. They just cook them whole, so you get like hundreds of these little buggers that through the entire game or while you're drinking, whatever it is that you're doing, you're constantly crunching, peeling, trying to get that little bit of meat out of the shell. Keep you really, really busy. And of course, make a royal mess all over the table, on the floor, on yourself. And people just have a great old time about that. And if you talk to a lot of these people and ask them, hey, like, would you like it if I find a way to get you these crayfish already peeled, like those peeled shrimp you can buy from the store? Would you eat them if they're already peeled? They'll tell you no, because they don't actually enjoy the crayfish itself, not as much as the process of peeling, shelling, cracking, crunching, making a mess. That's what they're into. If you hear kitten coughing in the background, that's not COVID. Don't worry. She's came down with a little bit of a sinus issue in the past few days. Uh, I tell her it's because her nose is really small. That's why. So yeah, kitten is not feeling super good, but no, it's not COVID. So no need to be too sensitive or alarmed about that. Crayfish. Okay, so since we are talking about crayfish, I might as well give you guys the what a little interesting trivia and a Mandarin lesson. In Mandarin, a shrimp or a prawn, they are both the same thing in Mandarin. It's called xia. It's spelled Xia, but you're pronouncing it more uh like Shia or Sia. Xia. That's a shrimp and a prawn, jumbo shrimp, whatever you guys call it. Okay, they call it xia. So in Mandarin, there's no differentiating a prawn or jumbo shrimp or a shrimp. They just call it xia. A lobster, interestingly enough, is called 龙虾. 龙 Long is dragon, which means if you do a direct translation, a lobster, Chinese people call them dragon shrimp, and kind of makes sense. Kind of makes sense. I mean, they look kind of like a super big shrimp on steroid. So I guess calling them dragon shrimp makes sense. And then this is where Chinese language is kind of cute sometimes. A crayfish or crawfish is called 小龙虾, basically called small lobster, small dragon shrimp. Even though a crayfish and a lobster is like different animal, it's not the same. But Chinese people they call it 小龙虾. So 小龙虾is a current favorite, current reigning champion of Chinese game night food, uh, movie food, beer food. Uh, I myself have not really indulged in that as much because crayfish by nature can be a little bit unhygienic just because the kind of environment they live in. So, of course, if you guys grow up eating this stuff, you already know. But if you are not a connoisseur of crayfish, just be aware that it's important to know where your crayfish come from. Uh, are they farmed? Are they wild? Did they catch them in the river, or did they just find them in the ditch on the side of the road? Don't laugh about that. It's true. I'm not kidding you. That you actually can find crayfish in the sewer, in the ditch on the side of the road, in storm drains on the side of the road. If there's enough water, there's enough mud, there's enough microorganism, you can find crayfish in a lot of these places. And yeah, so they can be a little bit dirty sometimes. Now, like I said, crayfish is like more became a thing in the past few years. What's before that? What's before that? Well, when I was growing up, the favorite snack food, game night food, beer food for my people in Taiwan was either chicken neck, duck neck, or chicken feet or duck feet. And if you guys have not had that, then you don't know it. It's take a lot of work to eat a chicken feet, to eat chicken claw, or to eat a chicken neck because there's not a lot of meat. You have to crunch down, uh, uh, bite it apart, crunch through the bones, get a little bit of meat and tendons and whatever juice is marinated in. It's a lot of work with very little reward to eat that. And but my people really enjoy the heck out of that. Every time there's a ball game, every time there's a beer party, backyard barbecue, picnic, something like that, where people need something to munch on, it's always these. And you know, when you really think about it, why not chicken drumstick? Why not chicken wings? Yeah, no, here in North America, people enjoy chicken wings, but no, not in Taiwan or China. People want chicken feet, chicken neck, something that took a lot of work and has very little on it that you can eat. Another food item that was immensely popular when I was little, and this I actually tried a few times and I gave up on it because as a child, I just couldn't understand why you would uh, enjoy that. It's little sea snails. Now, when I say snail, some of you are thinking escargot, like in French food. The snail's already out of its shell, and then you put it in the iron skillet with butter and lemon juice and mushroom. Yeah, that's yummy, great. Not the snail I'm talking about. When you go to Taiwan and you go to a night market or any of the marketplaces, you have there these vendors that sell spicy fried snails. These snails, on average, are about the size of the tip of your pinky finger. I'm not talking about the meat. I'm talking about the shell. So you have a shell that about the size of the tip of your pinky finger. There's teeny bit of meat inside, but because the shell is so small, you can't really dig it out other than putting the shell up to your mouth and suck as hard as you can to get the meat out. So you get a bag of these. It's like, probably only cost you $5. And there will be hundreds of these things in a bag, all cooked and marinated, very spicy, very good tasting, but they are all small. They're all in their shell, which means they're going to be spending the next hour or so trying to get them out of their shell. And you'll end up with a lot more shell than you will with meat. Uh, Especially considering how small they were. But these things were so popular, like people just loved the heck out of them when I was little. Like I said, I tried them a couple of times, and I'm like, wow, this is way I end up spending more energy eating these things than getting any energy from the food itself. So I couldn't see the logic behind it at that time. Moving back, so if we go back to 50 years, 100 years, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, when people didn't have the resources we have today, you couldn't you could barely get meat once or twice a year. Most people have to live on a diet of just rice and pickled vegetable, or noodle and pickled vegetable. Very little meat. So never you're obviously not going to be using chicken feet or a chicken neck or spicy crayfish or sea snail for your just getting together with friends and have some beer. Okay, that would be too much of a luxury for most people back then. Well, back then they had their staple for game night food. I mean, there's probably no soccer game back then, no television, but people spend a lot of time going to the tea houses, listening to stand-up comedies and other performances, and they had their staple food back then that they could use to fidget with and make a mess with. It was pumpkin seeds and watermelon seeds. Just like nowadays we have people who eat sunflower seeds and put in their trail mix. Back then, a lot of time when people eat had pumpkin and watermelon, they would save the seed and then they would fry those seeds in a big skillet with oil and a lot of salt, and then they would drain the whole thing and let it dry and package them. And so whenever they're having beer or watching a show, they would get a handful of these, and they would. What you do is you take the hard shell of the seed, put it between your front teeth, and you crunch down very carefully because if you bite too hard, you'll ruin the whole thing. Okay, there's a trick to it. I learned this when I was a teenager. You have to bite down with just enough force to crack the shell open so you can get at the flesh inside uh, without crunching the whole thing uh, to mush. Right? So there's a degree of control, a degree of technique to eating these things. Again, if you go and ask a lot of the Chinese people that enjoy these seeds, which in Mandarin is called guazi, Gwaje. It's still a very popular food, snack food for Chinese people today. If you ask them, uh, well, they sell the seed in the store in a package that already shelled. You don't have to shell them. Why don't you just buy those? They'll tell you because the whole point is not eating. The whole point is the cracking, the biting, the taking the shell off, throwing the shell on the table, making a big mess, and all that stuff. That's the part they enjoy. They don't really care what they're eating. They don't really care about that part. They're more into something that they can fidget with while they're watching a show or watching a performance. So as you can see, uh, this tradition of fidgeting of food that are eaten just for the sake of having something to fidget with, not really for the nutritious value or not really for the food itself. Uh, this has been a long-standing tradition for Chinese people and really is a kind of a niche, a thing that a lot of people uh, neglect to see in Chinese culture, but it really kind of a cute part of my culture, a little idiosyncrasy of Chinese culture, Chinese people, uh, how they like to fidget with their food while they're engaged in social activities. Uh, that I hope, uh, if nothing else, it has been entertaining for you guys. And if you have not tried it, then go get yourself a pound of crayfish or a pound of uh, pumpkin seeds and give it a try. Who knows? Maybe you'll find a new something to munch on next time you watch a football game. I promise you, it's a lot of work, but you know what? In the end, crayfish, pumpkin seed, chicken feet is a lot more healthy than potato chips. Although I'm not knocking potato chips because if you ask me if I want something to munch on, I probably still prefer potato chips because I don't need to shell them, crack them, bite through bones, suck the meat out of the shells, and all that nonsense. Anyway, that's just me. I will see you guys again tomorrow, towards Thursday, and hopefully Kitten will feel better soon. For now, 谢谢 and 再见，
再见。
再见。